So I'm happy to introduce Linda Howard. She received a University of Pennsylvania law degree in 1986. Today she is a health and fitness enthusiast with 3 decades of related experience. She's a certified wellness coach and CEO of Alternative Fitness, a company focused on helping others find a natural path to total well-being. She produced 17 wellness videos, published countless industry articles, lobbied on Capitol Hill for legislation supporting primary prevention, and is a member of several national professional organizations. She worked and managed healthcare as a privacy, risk control, and compliance officer, and was an executive in the Office of Business Ethics. She also advised clients domestically and abroad as a business consultant. And she was the CEO of an international retail business and received the Urban Financial Services Coalition's Distinguished Entrepreneur Award. So I want to welcome Linda Howard.
Thank you. So this is my third session, third and last. Is anyone in here from the Sunday intensive? I guess they got enough of me on Sunday. It was 8 hours. How about from this morning session? Okay, so those of you who were here in the morning session and combined with this session, you will get a lot of what we did in the 8-hour intensive, okay? Those of you who didn't go to the morning session, and after we get through this, if you say, hey, I wish I would have caught the morning session, I'll be uploading the PowerPoint presentation, so you can always go and get the presentation for the morning session. Because they all kind of go together. It's all of the business side of wellness. This presentation is Wellness is a Business, Jump on Board Entrepreneurial Style. Okay, we're going to talk briefly about the industry. Last year when I did a similar presentation, there were a lot of questions around intellectual property. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on intellectual property issues. We'll also talk about business law and business opportunities in wellness. If there's you can ask questions at any time, stop me, interrupt me. If there's something that you want to hear a little bit more about, let me know. I'm going to try to let you guide how we do the presentation, what we spend more time on, and what we may need to spend less time on, okay? All of us are people who are here in the wellness business, so you probably have some sense of a definition of what wellness is. I happen to like this definition that I located, so I included it in the presentation. But wellness is multidimensional, holistic, integrating physical, mental, spiritual, and social approaches. It's complementary and proactive, not only treating illness, but more importantly, focused on preventing sickness and improving overall quality of life. It's customer-driven, relying on consumer choice rather than patient necessity. And for most of the wellness industry, it is driven by consumer choice. It is not something like in the medical field, which is usually driven by an illness. But for wellness, the majority of the wellness business is consumer-driven. It's choice. It's proactive. Okay. The industry is worth $2 trillion globally. This is a breakdown of what's included in the wellness industry. Oftentimes, what we do, we kind of think that that's most of it. And actually, the wellness coaching and worksite wellness is the smallest component of the wellness industry. The largest component is the beauty and anti-aging, fitness and mind-body, and healthy eating, nutrition, and weight loss. So I'm sure with most of these things, you see a lot of advertisements around this. There's all these ads for how to stay younger looking, how to get more energy, how to look more beautiful. It's all the focus on fitness, weight loss, nutritional supplements. This is the largest segment of the wellness industry. And the reason why I like to talk about the industry as a whole, because it's important as we're thinking about opportunities in wellness that we think where there's synergy. So even if it's not something that you personally do, it may be a good opportunity for you to collaborate with some of these other industries. So understanding the industries and understanding how large the industry is important when you start to think about where are my business opportunities. Okay. Any questions so far on this?
I think I know, but what is exactly your definition between wellness tourism and medical tourism?
Okay, good question. Medical tourism is focused more when people take trips for particular procedures. So oftentimes they go to other countries because the treatment plan might be less expensive or it may not be something that's available here in this country. Whereas wellness tourism is more when people are taking trips, like they're doing retreats in various places. It may be internationally, it may be domestically. So it may be a destination kind of retreat that's when they arrive at that location, there's wellness related functions. And these are, so when you look at the wellness tourism, a lot of times this does present opportunities for us in wellness. We might be we might live in a location which is a destination spot. And so we're the ones when the group arrive that coordinate all of the wellness functions, the massage, the healthy eating, the yoga, the retreats through the woods to find yourself. You know, all of these things are included in the wellness tourism. Any other questions on this? Okay. We've seen a tremendous growth in the industry, and for some of you who were in the morning session, this is a repeat. But the reason why we've seen such a growth in the industry is primarily because of the baby boomers. The baby boomers are getting older, but refusing to get old. And so as a result, they're demanding a lot of, I shouldn't say they, I should say we, are demanding a lot of wellness services. So it's a lot of emphasis on the health and beauty products, supplements for energy, joining various fitness type of activities. You also have the Generation X who grew up a little bit more in this whole wellness consciousness. And so they are also embracing the wellness. The difference between the Generation X and the baby boomers is that the Generation X is looking for more variety. So they're not comfortable with, they're not satisfied with the typical, you know, joining a gym, going in, you might get a trainer. Anybody in here personal trainers? Okay. So sometimes you go in the gym and you get the give me 3 sets of 15 on the machines. And for a lot of the Generation X, they're looking for more of the adventure type of things. So they're looking for more functional style training, things that where you're using multiple muscles at the same time. They're doing, one time it was really big for the climbing walls in gyms. So the Generation X is looking for things that are both fun, exciting, adventurous, and some of them are pretty high risk. The other reason why we've seen the growth is that as a nation, we're sicker. So we've been experiencing more chronic diseases, and people are trying to avoid the chronic diseases, or they're trying to use wellness as a means of coping or managing and lessening the symptoms of the different health conditions. Also, we have a lot of things right now going on in the environment. The First Lady Let's Move campaign happening, drawing a lot of attention to physical activity. We have the media, the Doctor Show, Dr. Oz. There's a lot of cooking shows out there that's also raising the consciousness around wellness, and a lot of charismatic leaders and personalities that's also talking about wellness. And this is a time where social media magnifies it. So all of these messages are being delivered, and they're being delivered on a wide scale, and with the things going viral, everybody's hearing about wellness, the need to stay fit, the need to stay healthy, the need to change their diet. So all of this has taken this industry to a $2 trillion industry. Okay. All right. So, intellectual property. For those of you, how many people are self-employed in the wellness business? Okay. How many people want to be? Okay. All right. So, understanding intellectual property is going to be very key, not only for wellness business, but for any business. Trademarks. I had a lot of questions last year around copyrights and trademarks. For trademarks, trademarks are good for trademarking logos, marks, slogans, font treatment. And with a trademark, that's something that you can do with an attorney, which I advise. Before, it can be an expensive process. So if you're not looking to create a national brand, you may not want to do a trademark. You might be comfortable registering the name of your business in your particular state. But if you're looking at building a national brand and investing a lot in the brand, a trademark might be an option. Then you can also use the TM. Anybody know the difference between the TM and the R in the circle?
Registered trademark or just trademark local, regional, right?
It's not regional, but it's a TM says you haven't registered it.
Right.
Okay, so you can actually establish a trademark without registering it. The registration helps to put people on notice, and it just makes it easier if you have to defend your trademark if it's registered. Now, when you register your trademark, and I say I'm an attorney, I use an attorney to do my trademark because it can be a very complicated process of figuring out which categories. When you do a trademark, you don't have a trademark across the board. You pick what categories you're doing the trademark in. So if you're an apparel company, you only have protection with that name from other people selling apparel. There can be a restaurant with the same name. There may be a facility with the same name. So when you look, when the lawyer is going to help you figure out which categories by talking to you and saying, okay, what is it that you want to do with this? Are you just an online business? Do you do publications? Do you provide personal services? But they'll talk to you and help you figure out which categories, and there's a lot of categories that overlap. So it may be that once you figure out what you're going to be doing, there's one category that captures it all, or maybe it may be two categories that you need to file under, and each category costs a different filing fee. But one of the things that trademarks do, it helps you protect your investment. Once you have your trademark and you build that brand, you don't have to worry about anybody else using that brand. Yes.
We have hired a trademark attorney for Making Moves, and
For
Making Moves, our company name.
Okay.
And I'm a little bit confused about trademarking a catalog. Like if we actually had a product, we could trademark the product inside the catalog. What if it was services?
Services they fall underneath the broad category of trademark, but it's called a service mark.
Okay.
So for services, a service mark. For products, it's a trademark. But it's all covered underneath the same trademark laws. Okay. The other reason why an attorney is really good for trademarks is sometimes you have to defend the application. You file an application, you get what's called a refusal letter, where the government says, the trademark office says, this is not acceptable. Either it's a name that cannot be trademarked, or it appears as if it may be violating somebody else's trademark. The name of my company is Alternative Fitness, and it's spelled with a U. There was another company called Alternative Fitness. I got a refusal letter. The refusal letter said the difference in spelling was not unique enough to avoid confusion. I wanted to defend it. I mean, I dreamed about this name. I had everything built around this name. There's no way I'm not going to have this name. So we defended it. I talked to the attorney and I said, listen, there is a difference because that U makes a difference. There's a whole campaign built around the U. The U is bold, the turn is bold. I had the taglines, turn it up, turn it on, turn it around. So turn does make a difference. And when you take the brand in totality and how it's being marketed, it is a very different brand. We won. So I have the registered trademark on the name Alternative Fitness. This is very difficult to do if you don't have an attorney involved. Okay, copyrights. You want to copyright articles, white papers, forms, website content, audio, video. Now, the fortunate thing about copyrights is that the minute that it is fixed in a form, you have a copyright, which means you don't have a copyright on ideas. You share an idea with someone, you say they stole it, you said they violated your copyright. No. It has to be fixed in a form. Once you put it down on paper, once it's recorded, it's then it automatically has a copyright. You are automatically the owner of the rights to that particular property. Registering it allows you to be able to defend it if you need to. You cannot bring a copyright infringement lawsuit unless you have registered your copyright. Now, you can do it, someone can infringe, you can then register it and then file, but that's the reason why people usually file the copyright. You don't have to, because you automatically have a copyright protection and you can just immediately start using the C on it. And even if you don't have the C, there's been recent changes in laws that said even without the C, you still own the copyright. Okay. Yes.
So if you wanted to avoid plagiarism, so on your website, if people are just copying and pasting your content onto theirs, do you have to register each page, or is your website just a full registration?
You can register the whole thing. The thing about websites is that a lot of times the content is changing. So if you have, say for instance, if you have a collection of poetry, you can register each separate poem, or you can register the whole collection. So, but with websites, the content is constantly changing. So most people put a footer down at the bottom of their website that says, has a copyright notice, which then covers the entire website. Okay. Okay, work for hire. This is really, really important, the work for hire, because I find that a lot of small businesses get in trouble by not using work for hire agreements. With the work for hire, you want to use it for anybody who's doing your website design, designing your logos, producing video for you. If you plan to own it, you need to have either a work for hire agreement, and if you don't have one, they need to assign the copyright ownership to you. The person who takes the photograph owns the copyright to it. The person who designs your website owns the rights to that design. The only way that you own it is if there is a formal work for hire agreement which says that they are working for you and anything that they produce you own. Other than that, they are the owners. And people do get in trouble with this because sometimes they get someone to design their website and the same person is doing the maintenance on the website. They decide, I don't want to use them any longer to do the maintenance. And the person says, guess what? You're not taking my website with you. And you say, wait a minute, I paid you $2,000 to do that website. You still don't own it. So having work for hire agreements is a very good thing to be mindful of. I can upload, if you want to leave your information with me, I can send you a link to like a Dropbox folder that has a lot of the sample forms in them. But I'll put my disclaimer in. I still suggest that you consult a lawyer when you're doing these, because you want to make sure that it's working for your particular situation. But anything that someone's doing for you, if you want to own it, you need to get the work for hire agreement. Okay. Any questions around that? Okay.
Sarah, let me kind of back up real quick. So, in the wellness world, there's a lot of software companies coming up, right? Developing apps, developing websites, all that type of stuff. How do you get that? Not just, I don't know if it's really the content, but almost the functionality copyrighted, so that can't be utilized. You know what I mean? So, like, for instance, we have an incentive tracking portal that we developed in-house, right? So some of that functionality is pretty general, but some of it's stuff that we came up with ourselves. So how do you get something like that?
Whatever fixed form you have it in, you file it.
So fixed form within the code and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
The code, it may be flow charts or whatever you have. that demonstrate that evidence to process, then that's what you copyright. And it's a good idea to let people know that you have, if you're selling it, to let them know, and that way you don't have to get into the hassle of defending it, because it can be pretty expensive once you start having to hire attorneys to defend your copyright and things like that. So the more you can let people know, because sometimes people violate your copyright without knowing it. And a lot of times we do that as well. We go in and we need images for something, so what do? We go on Google Images, find the images, download them, use them like we want to use them, not understanding that the photographer owns the right to those photos. And sometimes you will get, particularly if you have it on your website, a lot of photographers now are putting like crawlers in their photographs, so when you move them to your website, they find them. You may just get a notice to cease and desist, but they can also sue you as well. And you can find yourself paying monetary damages for the use of someone else's work. There's a lot of sites where you can buy the stock images, and some of them are less expensive than others, and I would suggest that you consider that. Mm-hmm.
I just came from a seminar where they talked about blogging, and there's one, rgbstock.com, that's free. It's a good free stock photo.
Okay.
rgbstock.
rgbstock.com, okay. There's one that I use, I think it's 123RF, which is pretty inexpensive because you can get a flat rate and then you can download a certain number of images a day. Like if you get a 30-day plan, you can download as many images as you want under a certain limit. Like for $200, and I think the $299 plan, you get 30 days and you can download up to 28 images a day. So if you got a big project, you might want to do something like that, because if you go to some of the other stock images, you start paying with credits, and it can get pretty expensive, and it's more expensive for larger photos than smaller photos. But really think about when you're looking for photos, of making sure that you're not violating other people's copyrights. Okay. Wellness business opportunities. Okay. So these are my finding opportunities must do. Anybody know what ear hustling is? Did I hear a year? Eavesdropping, right. I do it all the time. No matter where I am, I'm listening to people's conversations. And I will say, did I hear you say? And I learn a lot. I learn a lot about what people's needs are, particularly around wellness. If they've joined a gym, if they've left a gym, if they just lost 30 pounds, if they just joined some kind of group. But I hear a lot about people, and so I'm getting this firsthand knowledge, and particularly if you're talking about in a particular geographic area, for you to be able to say, I have firsthand knowledge about what the needs of the community is, because I hear it all the time. So I'm always listening. Plugging into current events. Current events will give you a lot of indication of kind of what's happening, where the trends are, because when you're looking at opportunities, you don't want to just look at the opportunities that are here today, but you want to look at where the industry's going. So listening to current events is another. Exploring other worlds. And what I mean by that is exploring other aspects of wellness. Don't stay in your own wellness world. So trying, if you've never tried yoga, try it. If you've never had a massage, try it. Try some of the various alternative healing methods. It's the only way when you're kind of trying to see where there's synergy and working with your clients and being able to develop these programs, that you'll be able to have kind of that firsthand knowledge about what works and what doesn't work in certain situations. Like if I take my own self, for example, I tried homeopathic medicine. I think it works. Anybody ever tried homeopathic? Okay. I think it works. It doesn't work for me. The reason why it doesn't work for me is because most of the time the treatment plans are small doses, very often, and you can't take it often while you're taking anything like garlic or peppermint. So I would always brush my teeth with peppermint in the toothpaste and then say, oh man, I was supposed to take that dosage. Or I start moving in my day and I didn't remember that I was supposed to take it every 3 hours. So it doesn't work for me because of my lifestyle. I'm not a real routine person, and I'm not going to stay on track with that. But you put me on a fast, I'm very disciplined when it comes to food. You get 100% compliance. Where you may have some clients where it's the opposite. They're very regimented, they can do the homeopathic, but it's because when you're trying it that you understand what's involved in it. You understand what it feels like to do a fast, and when that self-talk starts coming and telling you, oh, you really can eat, you did really well, you did 2 days, that was pretty good. Or what's involved with trying to stay on a regimen. So I say explore other worlds. And the last thing is work on ways to distinguish yourself. And that really involves you doing kind of that introspection and saying who you are, what's different about you, and how can you distinguish yourself from everyone else so that you stand out. Okay. Niche markets. Creating a niche market from your life experience. A lot of times when I say this to people, they immediately start thinking about their careers. Oh, I'm a nurse, so I can probably create some kind of niche because I'm a nurse. But when I'm talking about creating a niche from your life experience, I'm talking about the totality of your life experience. And that's where you grew up. It may be where you grew up. It may be your religion. It may be where you traveled to. It may be fields that you've worked in. When you look at ethnic marketing is usually an area that is an untapped area. A lot of businesses ignore the ethnic marketing. And it's not a market that you should ignore because the minorities are becoming the majority. It's a growing population. We live in a very diverse world. And if you ignore this population, it's a big market that you're ignoring. So when you think about your life experiences and think about ethnic marketing, there may be some opportunities that puts you in a unique position to market. You're Polish, you live in a community where there's a lot of Polish people, and there are no Polish wellness coaches. And so there's a lot of things that you'll understand about the Polish community that someone who's not Polish will understand. So for instance, you'll understand the foods, and when you're making suggestions around diet, you understand what the foods are. African American, one of the examples that I often give is that in the African American community, a lot of people know this, but if you're talking about designing a fitness program, particularly for African American women, it's not going to involve swimming most of the time. Right? Why? Because we're not getting our hair messed up. It's simple as that. If it's a choice between our hairdo and fitness, the hairdo is winning out. So you need to think about something else. So looking at the marketing and saying life experience and what do you know from your life experience, and are there ways that you can relate to a particular niche market because of that, and sometimes it's around ethnicity. There's also a lot of opportunities in physician wellness programs. Does anybody know why physician wellness programs are important?
Doctors and nurses don't take care of themselves.
That's true.
Covered by insurance?
Huh?
They covered by insurance?
Well, they are, but whether or not we can bill for it is a whole nother discussion.
Would it be something along the lines of care for the caretaker?
Pretty much, yes.
Well, referrals, like if you're really good and helping out your doctor, and
Excellent.
the doctor will refer their patients to you as well.
I find that most physicians are looking for other services for their company as well. So the more services that they can provide in their group, the more adamant the client or the patient would want to see them.
Yes. Yeah, all of that is correct, and that's why I looked at this as a good target market. The other reason, so they're going to be a good referral source. If they like what you're doing, they understand it, they may refer their clients to you. But the other thing is that the CDC has done a lot of studies on physicians who are physically fit and who are conscious about their diet. Those physicians are more likely to have discussions with their patients around fitness and diet. So from a standpoint of assisting in the whole movement of educating people around wellness, healthy physicians tend to communicate that message. And then they can also act as a referral source. And as you mentioned, nurses tend to have very stressful lives. Their jobs are very stressful. So a lot of times they don't take good care of themselves. They're a group that oftentimes do a very good job taking care of everybody else, but not taking care of themselves. So designing programs for physicians and nurses is also an opportunity. Executive wellness programs. If anybody has a background that allows you to have an in with executives, or that you were a former executive and you understand what the challenges of executives, this may be a good niche market for you. It may be stress management programs. It may be designing programs for people on the move, people who travel a lot. Somebody did a session yesterday. I don't know if anybody attended Shannon's session on running on the run. But she basically did a session on how do you stay fit while you're on the road. And this is a big challenge for a lot of executives. So looking at designing programs that's focused on them is also an option. Tell your story. This is actually a book that I did called Eating Out Vegan. And the way this book came about is not because I said, hey, I want to do this book on being a vegan. I've been a vegan for 15 years. I travel a lot. I'm on the move. I've had some very demanding jobs. I've had to take clients out. I'm the only one in my family that's a vegan. We're a very close-knit family, so we're always doing things together. We're always going out to dinner together. And I had to find places that we all could eat, because they were not coming to a vegan restaurant. That was out of the question. And so finding places where they could have a meal and I can have a meal was something that I started to do. So I started to learn all of the places, all of the mainstream restaurants, the ethnic restaurants where you were more likely to get vegan meals. And when I started talking to people, the ear hustling and talking to clients, I have a vegan coaching program. And talking to clients, and one of the things that they said, it's always difficult when I'm on the road. So my life experience told me there's a market in this. People need to know how to eat vegan while they're on the move. So I did the book. And so it was taking my life experience, identifying the need, taking the life experience, and then moving on it. Okay. We talked a little bit about ethnic marketing. The other reason why ethnic marketing can be a great target area is because you have a lot of ethnic groups that have health disparities. And so there are some conditions that some ethnic groups are more prone to than others. And looking at this as a target market and saying, designing, for instance, if you know that there's a group that may have higher incidence of diabetes, you may want to focus on having some wellness programs that's geared towards diabetes to attract this particular ethnic group. Now, once you do all this marketing, you bring them in, you got to have programs that are culturally sensitive, and that's taking into consideration, like I talked about, African American women are not going swimming. You're taking into consideration how a conservative Muslim woman or a conservative Jewish woman might not want to do exercises and mixed company, or they may not want to do things that are very revealing. But taking in consideration all of these differences to design culturally sensitive programs. Okay. Lifestyle medicine, also another opportunity. This is a list of different things that, and I should ask, because I found the last group, a lot of people didn't know what lifestyle medicine was. So anybody familiar with lifestyle medicine? The people that were in my last session should be raising their hand. Okay, lifestyle medicine is basically, a lot of physicians are now incorporating wellness programs into their treatment plans. So it's being used by, wellness programs are being used by physicians for prevention as well as treatment. And understanding that this is, and I think somebody asked me where was that certification at Harvard that I was talking about. I went to a lifestyle medicine training that was sponsored by Harvard Medical School, and it focused, and it primarily were clinicians that were in it, a lot of physicians. They talked about all the things that they're doing around lifestyle medicine, shared medical appointments where they have 10 patients come in, they get a chance to spend an hour and a half with 10 patients as opposed to 10 minutes each. And then in that way, they can spend more time focusing on wellness type of things. So understanding there's a whole movement around lifestyle medicine opens up a lot of different opportunities. There's complementary services. The Cancer Institute of America, if you see any of their commercials, they're always talking about their complementary services, which is big for cancer treatment. Everything from acupuncture and reflexology to complement the treatment to art therapy while people are doing their chemo treatment. There are services for the family caregivers on wellness services. There's the disease management, smoking cessation that can be fall underneath lifestyle medicine, alcohol moderation, and doing health risk assessments for physicians, which is now a part of the Affordable Care Act, in particular with Medicare programs. Medicare now is paying for one annual wellness visit that must include a health risk assessment, and it also has to include a wellness plan. Okay. And I think I might have that. Okay. So in looking at what we need to do to prepare for lifestyle medicine is, one, learning to speak the language. Two, and I'm not going to go into details because I went into details on the last one on the codes of ethics and understanding the privacy laws, but what I will say around that is that if you're going to be working with physicians, there will be an expectation that we are conducting ourselves as every other profession does. And professions typically have a code of ethics that they have agreed that they're going to abide by. And when you're working with medical records, there are a lot of privacy laws that you have to comply with. If anyone has worked for a hospital or healthcare facility, you've probably had HIPAA training. Okay. So understanding HIPAA and all the laws around protecting people, privacy of their information, as well as the state privacy laws, and most states also have medical records laws. But these are things that you need to be aware of when we start thinking about opportunities in lifestyle medicine. Okay, worksite wellness. How many people do worksite wellness? Lots, okay. So you know that there's opportunities in worksite wellness. The two things that I will say about the worksite wellness is that it's important whether or not you're seeking business or you are an employee of a company doing their wellness program to be able to show the return on investment. When you're looking to get the business, you need to be able to show the value of the services that you're offered. If you're an employee, you need to be able to show your value. And oftentimes, wellness programs, things like wellness programs, these are these areas that are not revenue generating areas. So when cuts happen, oftentimes cuts happens in those areas that are not revenue generating divisions, which oftentimes wellness programs you find cuts there. Showing the return on investment is helpful. Also, being able to show return quickly is helpful. Okay. This is a list of tools, and you may have seen some of these tools before, but these are some tools that you can assist you in being able to show return on investment. Some of these tools you can plug in various information and they show how obesity impacts an employer's healthcare costs, for instance. And as I said, I'll upload I know you can't write this all down, but I will upload the presentation and it will all be there. Okay. There's a couple of programs that I noticed, and some of you probably have some things to add because I know a lot of you do worksite wellness. But two programs that I know tend to show quick returns on investment is programs for pregnant women. Now, mixing the low-hanging fruit with some of the long-term plans is also good, but it's good to show along the way as opposed to saying, you just wait 18 months, you're going to see the benefit of this, because you might not be around 18 months when they experience the benefit. So things like pregnancy programs where you provide prenatal care are things that can show very quick returns on investment. Stress reduction programs also show very quick returns on investment. Stress is directly linked to a lot of chronic conditions. And 25% of primary care visits are tied to stress-related conditions. So improving the stress level in a company can reduce their healthcare costs greatly. Okay, fitness. I think we have someone from ACE here, right? Fitness is a great opportunity. Partnering with health clubs. I'm a member of IRSA, which is an organization for club owners, and I talk to a lot of club owners. A lot of club owners are now putting wellness coaches in their clubs. They're incorporating wellness into their fitness program, and it's been very successful. So partnering with fitness clubs is an opportunity. There's a lot of legislation supporting physical activity. Most of these legislations are pending legislations, but they have been getting a lot of mileage. You have the Personal Health Investment Today Act, which would pay for a variety of fitness activities and expenses, such as club memberships, by using things like your flex spending account, your health savings account. There's the Workforce Health Improvement Program, which is now a part of the HELP Act, and this provides businesses with tax credits to pay for wellness programs. Right now, a company, if they have a fitness facility on site, they can deduct it, and employees do not have to claim it as a part of their income. If they pay for an employee to go to a fitness facility off-site, they cannot deduct it, and the employee has to claim it as income. So this is an act that would equalize. You have the Fit Kids Act, which is an amendment to the No Child Left Behind, and this authorizes a grant program to promote physical education and activity with students. So there's a lot of legislation. When I'm talking about looking at not only where we are today, but looking at where the trend is, I'm looking at all this legislation and saying there's a lot of opportunities in the fitness area.
Would you say that most of these opportunities are geared towards nonprofit?
No, not necessarily. There are some things that are more community-based organizations, and those are getting more into the grants, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But these are all legislations that apply to employer-sponsored wellness programs and also things relating to schools and fitness facilities.
Our organization does a reimbursement for fitness facility use, and that reimbursement just shows up on top of the check as a direct deposit. Now, should that be a taxable reimbursement?
It is taxable.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the purpose of the new legislation, is to say it's unfair. It should not be taxed. Any other questions around this legislation? Okay. Government funding grants supporting physical activity. There's the PIP Act, which provides grants to local educational agencies and community-based organizations to initiate, expand, or enhance physical activity programs for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Okay. The Community Transformation Grant Program, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, acting through the CDC, they give grants to state and local government and community-based organizations for the implementation, evaluation, and dissemination of evidence-based community preventive health activities. Now, some of you may say, well, that doesn't apply to me. I say follow the money. Finding out which organizations are receiving these grants because they have to hire people. So they hire all kinds of people from different industries in order to implement their programs. And you can find, if you just Google the Community Transformation Grant Program, you can find who the recipients of the 2013 grants are and approach them. Okay, any questions around the acts and the grants, the legislation? Okay, the Affordable Care Act also brings a couple of opportunities for the wellness industry. One is there's a new wellness program provision which gives grants for small businesses. So I think it's businesses with less than 100 employees. There are grants available for them to set up wellness programs. The opportunity there is that you might be able to help some businesses get access to the grant and run their wellness program. There's also increased incentives for employees underneath the Act. And I'll try to sum this up, but under HIPAA, you cannot discriminate on a basis of health for employer-sponsored programs. So typically, anything where you are tying rewards or penalties to health insurance premiums would be a violation of HIPAA. So there are some exceptions. The exception is that you cannot have those rewards or penalties be greater than 20% of the total premium cost. The new legislation raised that to 30%. And it has language in there that gives the secretary rights to raise it to 50%. So this is also having an impact on how wellness programs are being administered.
Unless there's something very recent, the ACA did authorize small business grants, but the money has not been appropriated.
Okay, that I don't know. Okay. I thought it was, so we need to check that. Okay, so Medicare annual wellness visits is also a provision. I talked about that a little bit for under Medicare, but that's also a provision that's in the ACA. Okay. Okay. Other opportunities. Medical tourism, anti-aging and beauty, and these are some of the areas that we talked about in the beginning. And when I talk about bundling, I'm saying looking at some of these other industries, other sectors, and saying how can those things be bundled with the services that I offer. Accessibility. Accessibility is being in the right place. Well, for instance, a wellness coach being positioned in a gym, where they have clients being filtered to them from the gym. So certain locations are going to bring different opportunities to you because you become more accessible. Okay. Any questions on opportunities? Anybody thinking of opportunities? Yes.
What was medical tourism again? You mentioned in the first talk.
Medical tourism is when you travel somewhere else to receive a medical procedure, which is different from wellness tourism, where you're going not necessarily to treat a condition, but you're going more for wellness type services, retreats, spas, those type of things.
So how would that be a niche, or how would that be applied for us?
Because it's an opportunity for us to think about how can we tie in to this particular industry, particular industry. We may be a facilitator. We might be able to work along with some of those that are doing the medical tourism. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, the only thing I'll throw out is in the corporate world, I'm seeing a need for nurses or people that know how to navigate even claims codes and reviewing bills, because when you're going to have all the uninsured going to state exchanges who've never seen bills from insurance companies.
Right.
And two, now with preventive being at 100%, there's little that's covered, and you get this bill, and people are getting really confused because they're being charged more or less. So if you have that kind of niche, that's going to be a area that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And as we talk about where do we fit into these kind of annual wellness visits and being able to bill Medicare, there's a whole process for being able to bill and billing correctly. And if you do have that background in billing and you also have that background in wellness, you actually might be able to position yourself as the facilitator to help all of these new wellness businesses that are trying to take advantage of payment by insurance companies and don't know how to bill insurance companies. Because there is a process for billing and documenting your files and keeping your records. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Law. So I'll do my disclaimer. I'm not giving you any specific legal advice. My goal is to just familiarize you with some of the agreements that you should have in place and the need for legal advice. Okay, so company formations. There's various types of companies and there's pros and cons to each, and you really should think about when you're setting up the business what type of business you want to be. There's sole proprietorships, limited liability companies, corporations, partnerships, low profit limited liability companies, also referred to as L3Cs. The advantage of a sole proprietorship is easy to do. You start business, you're a sole proprietorship. You don't have to file anything. You report the income on your personal tax returns. Very simple. The disadvantage, you're personally liable. You have an issue with your business, your personal assets are at stake. Even if you're willing to take the risk, if you're married, your spouse might not appreciate the house being at risk. So the sole proprietorship doesn't give you any liability protection. A limited liability company, an LLC, does give you that protection. It's easier to set up than a corporation, but you do get that limited liability with an LLC. In most states, I don't know if there's any state that does not have an LLC, and I should say that this is all by state law. Okay. Corporations, you have two types of corporations. You have an S corporation and a C corporation. Your C corporation is usually what your big companies do. There's a lot of regulations, filings that go along with being a C corporation. You have to file quarterly tax returns. You have to have meetings of the shareholders. You have to keep the minutes. And when you don't do all these things, you run the risk of losing your corporate status. So it's more cumbersome. And also with a corporation, which is different from a limited liability company, corporations are subject to what's called double taxation. Anybody know what double taxation is? Double taxation basically means the company earns money. The company is taxed on it as revenue. It then distributes that money to the shareholders, and the shareholders are taxed on that same money as income. So if it's just you don't want to be a C Corp because you're going to pay double taxation on the same earnings. Okay. With a limited liability company, you file it with your personal taxes, and so it's considered to be a pass-through. The taxation happens to you at the individual level and not at the company level. An S corporation gives you the protection of a corporation, which is that limited liability, but you don't have that double taxation. Okay. But there are more restrictions, like you can't have You can't have another company own shares in an S corporation where you can in a C corporation. Partnerships, I'm not sure why anybody would do a general partnership these days. With a general partnership, you are liable personally for any of the acts of not only yourself, but of your partners. It's one for all and all for one. You do have also limited liability partners. With a limited liability partnership, you have two types of partners. You have a general partner who does the day-to-day stuff, has all the voting rights. The limited partners do not have any voting rights. They are not involved in the day-to-day activities. Their risk extends only to the amount of their investment in it. So they don't have personal liability to limited liability partners. Okay? And the newest form is the L3C, and it's only about 6 states, I think, that actually have low-profit limited liability companies. And this is kind of a hybrid between a nonprofit and a corporation. And what it does is that the company's main purpose has to be some kind of social good, and profit is incidental. It also allows people to invest in it. Whereas with a nonprofit, you don't invest in a nonprofit. You make a donation and you get nothing back. With a low liability company, a low profit, you can invest and get a return on investment. And the reason why a lot of states put this into action is because it allowed those that are doing things social good, the arts, to be able to raise money. So now they can get investors to invest, which they could not do in a nonprofit. And this is important because a lot of us are doing things that might fall underneath this definition of social good. And it's a way to actually raise revenue through investors. Keeping separate bank accounts for your business is important in order to maintain that business status. When we talk about limited liability, you can lose that liability when you conduct your personal affairs and your business affairs together, which they use the term pierce in the corporate veil. So you only get the protection as if you're operating as 2 separate entities. Business licensing, if you're setting up a business, you should check with your particular state to make sure you have whatever licenses are required. There are a lot of licensing out there. I could not possibly name all of them because they're going to vary from state to county. You may have a license. If you have a spa, you may need a license for that. If you have a barbershop, you need a license for that. You sell liquor, you need a license for that. So there's so many things. You have food, you need a license relating to that. You want to check and make sure you have whatever business licensing is required for whatever it is that you're doing. And lastly is doing business as, the DBA. If you do not incorporate and you're a sole proprietorship and you're using a name other than your name, it is a DBA. You are doing business as something else, and most states you have to register that name. If you're a corporation and you incorporate as ABC Company, but you do business as another name, you need to do a DBA. So that was a really quick run-through of company formation. Any questions?
Which format did you choose?
I'm an LLC.
Why that one versus an S corp?
Because I didn't really have a reason to do the S corp. It's more filing. I get the limited liability protection with an LLC, and I'm able to bring in a limited number of shareholders, so I can still raise money through investment. It's much easier filing taxes, so that's why I chose the LLC.
There's a difference between being the managing owner and a partner owner with an LLC, is that right?
Say that again?
Is there a difference? When I set up my LLC, there was a difference between being the managing owner versus, I can't remember what the other option was, but the partnership ownership?
What state are you in?
Indiana.
Okay, so that might be specific to your state. So because this is all controlled by state laws, so different states may have some different provisions. In the state I'm in, there's not a difference. Okay.
Do you know the 6 states that are doing the L3C?
Or
or one of them?
And I know North Carolina. I don't know, but I'll find. I have it in my bag. I can pull it out for you. Okay.
I know when I was running my travel agency, I had to go through hoops. Each state had their own little, you can't set up this, you can't sell to people in my state unless you're going to pay for this approval and pay for this licensing. And because when you went online and somebody from California decided to purchase one of my trips, that became a nightmare if the state decided to go, tag, you're it, and you now owe us whatever, or you're not allowed to do this, or you can go to jail. For California, you can go to jail if they really feel like being a pain in the ass. With other things, as we go more and more online, how does that work? How do we find out about those wellness coaching issues state to state?
That's why a lot of times it's important for you to hire a good attorney, because there are some things, and I'm sure you probably signed different agreements where they have, this doesn't apply, this applies to everybody except, and then they'll list 2 states. Because there's 2 states that do not allow them to do that in that particular state. So usually what they have is a standard agreement, and then in the standard agreement they have the exceptions to say, okay, we're not doing this to you people in California and this, in Wyoming. So having a good lawyer to help you figure out what you can and cannot do, state by state, if you're operating across state lines, is a good thing to do. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lawyer who helped me set up the travel, but I didn't pick one who knew enough about small business operation and travel in particular to be able to answer that question. And with wellness being relatively new as far as entrepreneurial scape, trying to find that lawyer who not only understands the small business marketplace but understands wellness and all of the legalities that go with it.
Okay. There are a lot of lawyers that practice like health law that are doing more things around wellness. So if you're looking for a lawyer, you should call your local bar association or go to their website. They can actually refer you to lawyers that specialize in a particular area. So when you're hiring a lawyer, so I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't mention it. When you hire a lawyer, you should make sure you hire a lawyer that's good at what you need them to do. So if you are doing a trademark, you should hire an intellectual property lawyer to do your trademark. If you're doing commercial leases, make sure you're hiring somebody that understands commercial leases. Okay, so it's about also picking the right attorney, and you can interview attorneys. Don't be intimidated, and interview them and find out what their background is and what their specialty is. I know when I was hiring one of the lawyers to do my lease negotiation, she said to me, she says, "Oh, I have this really big book on commercial leases." I said, "I don't care what size book you have. You're not billing me for your learning curve. So either you know it or you don't." So the book was irrelevant to me. If you know it, fine. If you don't, you won't learn on my dime. So you want to make sure you have somebody that actually already has the expertise in what you're doing. Okay, which takes us to legal agreements and forms. Client agreements, you should have very solid client agreements. Okay. And again, if you leave me information, I'll send you some samples of good client agreements and some of the terms that you should have in those client agreements. Lease agreements, what I will say about those, if you are leasing any commercial space, my advice to you is do not go it alone. Commercial leases are not like residential leases. They are something that you can negotiate and you are expected to negotiate it. So when you're looking for space, you can work with a broker to help you find the space, and a broker can help you figure out what's the norm in your market. You negotiate for things like free rent period. Landlords sometimes, depending upon the market, will pay for a certain part of your build-out cost. If you have to do build-out, you're going to have clauses in there that says what you can and cannot do in this space. You don't want to get in there, build a whole business strategy around something that somebody comes and tells you that it's not allowed in your lease. So do not go into commercial leases without having some representation. We talked about work for hire agreements, releases. You will need releases from, if you're taking photographs of someone that you want to put on your website, they need to sign a release authorizing you to use their photograph. The verbal, do not accept the verbal, because what's acceptable today might not be acceptable a year from now. And it's amazing how people can figure how your growth had something to do with them. So you don't want to have that verbal, because it's like, but for my picture, it was my picture that helped your business take off. Yes.
So if clients email you testimonials via email, do you have to have somebody sign something to use that? Or, I mean, you know, I always ask the client to email me and say, can I use this? And they say yes, but I'm just curious.
I typically do if I'm using someone's full name. I'll usually get their permission. If I don't use their full name, then I don't worry about getting their permission.
But if you get an email permission, is that good enough?
That's good enough, yeah.
Release sign.
Yeah, I think you just need to have some kind of documentation that it was authorized.
So including, when they send you a testimonial, they'll often include a picture.
Get a release to use the picture. And if it's a professional picture, get the release from the photographer who took the picture. And that's the other types of releases that you want to get is if you hire a photographer to do your headshots, get a release from them that sometimes it's called a release, sometimes it's called a license to use. But remember, they own it, so they got to give you rights to use it. Most photographers will not give you a blanket right. They will give you some limited right to use. They will not give you generally full ownership of that picture, even though it's you. Because most of the time they don't want that, you know, you take the picture, you said you were going to use it for your website, things really take off. Some magazine wants to do a story on you. Magazine wants to use the picture. Well, the photographer wants to charge that magazine a lot more than he charged you for taking that picture. So yeah, when it comes to releases, you want to use them if you're taking somebody's pictures and if someone's taking yours. So depending upon who took the photo, you might need to release from the photographer as well. Waivers, anybody that's doing physical activity, you definitely want a waiver. I don't think there's any gyms in the country that don't make you sign a waiver. You want to walk through there and just do a look-see, you're signing a waiver. There is an inherent risk in certain activities, and they will expect for you to sign a waiver saying that you will assume the risk of that activity. Your waivers, you should again see an attorney, because how well a waiver stands up varies from state to state. So, yes.
A question on that. On the side, I teach yoga classes,
And
I have a LLC, limited liability, and I'm considered a subcontractor under a place where I'll teach drop-in classes. Now, the place where I teach drop-in classes has a waiver. Am I covered under the facility waiver, or as my own entity doing as an LLC coming in as a subcontractor, should I have my own waiver?
I would have my own. I wouldn't depend, because what happens is that any good lawyer is suing everybody involved. So you're going to be sued, the facility is going to be sued. If anybody else look like they might have been involved, they're going to be named too. You put everybody in and you let them work it out. So you want to have your own waiver, because you might find that you're the one that's held liable and not the facility, and you didn't have a waiver. Okay. Confidentiality agreements. If you're building your business and you're investing in it, and you're doing business with other people, you want to make sure they're keeping your information confidential. The footnote to that, most investors are not signing a confidentiality agreement. You are not in a strong bargaining position. You say, listen, I got this brilliant idea. I want you to invest in it, but I need you to sign a confidentiality agreement. They're going to tell you, more than likely, no way, because there's no reason for them to. The only thing it does is open them up to liability when you turn around and say, they stole your idea. Non-compete agreements, you're hiring people. You're giving them a lot of information. You're spending time training them, investing in them, sending them for certifications. Get them to sign a non-compete agreement.
That's a state-to-state thing too, because in California, I tried that and it didn't work at all. The lawyer just said, no, there is no such thing as a non-compete, only if it was a loss of actual revenue. In other words, I trained a trainer with boot camp business, getting everything. She did it in the same park with the same people on the same days, and even that I couldn't press.
And that's why you need to make sure you're using attorneys in your particular state, because what language is included in a non-compete agreement, like if a non-compete agreement is too restrictive, it won't be held up. If you try to say you can't compete in this business for 5 years anywhere in the state, it's not going to hold up. Depending upon what the language is in the agreement, that will determine whether or not it's something that the courts will recognize. Then if you're saying, and I don't know about California law, if California doesn't recognize them at all, or maybe they're very restrictive as to what they recognize.
Yes, that's the second one.
Okay.
There was a situation in which if you had, personal losses due to them actually stealing your client somehow versus,
right,
getting them reassigned or something.
Yeah, and that's why you want to have tight agreements. And I guess I have commercial leases up there twice. Okay. Potential legal issues, liability related to recommendations and diagnosis. You can have professional liability and coaching, and particularly those of us that have other areas and other licensing. You advertise on your brochure, hey, I'm a nurse, I'm a physician. A lot of physicians are now becoming wellness coaches. So they may be held, when they advertise themselves as a physician and a wellness coach, they may be held to the same standard as a physician would be held to, even though they're, quote, not acting as a physician. Breach of contract, those agreements that you get clients to sign, they're contracts. Make sure you don't make promises in those that you cannot keep. I guarantee you're going to lose, 30 pounds. They don't lose 30 pounds, guess what? Breach of contract. Violation of group health insurance laws. There's a lot of laws that impact group health insurance, so you need to be mindful of those, and potential violations of state and federal privacy laws. Okay. Ways to manage your risk is a good liability insurance policy, getting waivers, releases, and strong client agreements. Okay. And this is my latest book, which is basically covers a lot of the wellness industry from the business perspective. I actually gave it as materials to those who took the Sunday class because it's a pre-release version that I did for the wellness conference. The actual book will be out in about 2 weeks. Yes.
Did you bring any extra copies today?
Not to sell.
I don't have one back there hiding that I can jump up and.
I asked for it.
We'll fight for it.
That's okay.
Duke it out.
What's your name?
Judy Goldberg.
Judy? I have two. Judy?
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
The last session, I said, who wants this? And one person jumped up and ran to get it. Everybody else said, I do. One person took charge and got it. So I said, that was the lesson. Oh, I said, what do you do as an entrepreneur when you want something? People say, you ask. She said, you go get it. So because you asked and because you did.
Thank you.
So we're about out of time, but are there any last question?
Yes. I need an autograph.